Ethereum's biggest upgrade of 2025 is here. Fusaka is live on mainnet. The Fusaka upgrade introduces cheaper gas fees and efficiency to the network through sharding. Now, L2 ecosystems like Linea and protocols like Aave are capitalizing on the upgrade, getting their systems to, once again, stress test scaling with even more use cases. In this episode, we will go through 3 questions. Number 1, what does the Fusaka upgrade actually mean for everybody? Number 2, which protocols have rolled out the new Ethereum upgrade? And 3, what are some of the possible metas that could come out from this? Welcome to this episode of the Whitepaper by AthenaX, where we're strictly educational and entertainment and not financial advice. Alright, so let's get right into this. We all know what Ethereum is, but what the heck's Fusaka and why does this matter? At the brass tacks, Fusaka is an announcement to the world that Ethereum developers have found a way to improve costs and performance up by 87.5%, which opens the door for new models to exist on the blockchain. When it comes to scaling data transfer, you generally have essentially 2 choices. The first is you increase the total size of the storage, or you reduce the size of the transacted data available. Now, both of these have its trade-offs, and it usually comes down to usage being either more expensive to maintain or potential data loss in operations. So naturally, you can imagine these 2 are expensive decisions. But blockchain scaling also generally means lower transaction costs for everybody and increased functional limits before the network breaks into an explosion of gas fee spikes. In the case of Fusaka, Ethereum developers have found a way to compress data without having substantial data loss. This is done through the introduction of peerDAS, or peer-to-peer data availability sampling. It's an iteration of sharding Ethereum blobs even further, leading to an 8x efficiency gain. Because there are smaller pieces to work with, there is less computation power needed on node validators, leading to less stress on the network and therefore cheaper gas fees. This also means that L2 rollups receive an indirect performance boost through the cheaper fees and load balancing. So how are some of the major protocols handling the new gas fees? Well, since the upgrades, they have collectively unlocked $5 billion in untapped liquidity by lowering the barriers for niche pairs such as RWAs and synthetics. The major protocols such as Uniswap, Curve, and Aave have rolled out updates in favor to support new market creation while enjoying the cheaper gas fees made by the upgrade. Uniswap, Balancer, and Curve are also rushing to supply liquidity to these newly tokenized RWA pairs. Lending giants like Aave, Compound, and Morpho are also supplying more liquidity for markets like DATs, DPIN, and RWAs. Earlier this week, Aave also reported a new partnership with Babylon where they are bringing in Bitcoin BTC pairs to the Ethereum blockchain. Because it's easier and cheaper to source liquidity now, peerDASes are also offering 100x leverage products for trading to its users, such as in the case of DYDX. L2s like Arbitrum saw a 15% TVL growth through the optimization of its dApps. Base has started focusing on retail products like on-chain tipping and fan tokens, while Optimism introduced cross-rollup markets for interoperable liquidity pools. But what about ZK? Now, this is more of a personal thought, but ZK is where I think Fusaka could potentially affect Ethereum the most. But also bearing in mind, it's still early days and ZK is still mostly theory. We still don't know if the cost of running ZK proofs are even optimal or not. ZK proofs are generally too expensive to work with at scale, simply because there is another layer of cryptography added to the transactions. So cheaper gas fees is always a welcome change. ZK DeFi has since seen a 25% increase in TVL inflows, unlocking privacy markets worth $1.5 billion in tokenized assets in synthetics. And most of these narratives are driven by 2 protocols, Linea, who are pushing ZK-secured RWA tokenizations for institutions, and ZK Sync Era, who are bringing liquidity from Ethereum into its permissioned institutional ZK chains. The rest of ZK are still playing catch up in terms of innovation, but it shows the potential here because ZK DeFi could be the unlock to more institutional adoption, where their illiquid assets could be turned liquid and more productive on chain. So, for some final thoughts, following the Fusaka upgrades, things have generally been positive for the ecosystem. There have been more transactions happening at the back end where smart contracts are speaking to each other more often in terms of transactions. And always, the more transactions that happen on the blockchain, there are more ways for you to nickel and dime your way according to the whole transaction path. But the main question and elephant in the room is this the end game for Ethereum scaling? Are L2 rollups finally going to see even more retail adoption or adoption in general? And personally, I think the answer is not yet. But if there's anything that Fusaka tells us, it's one step forward for frontier tech, and every step forward leads to experimentation, which is the foundation for innovation. Ethereum continues to cement its L1 supremacy with peerDAS, unlocking sub-cent fees at scale. And while price action has been boring on Ethereum, they've been compounding on the fundamentals on-chain. If you've seen my last video on both Aave and Bitmine, then you also kind of understand why these fundamental growth and changes would essentially make Ethereum still a long-term hold for your portfolio. Now that's it for this episode of the White Paper, and I'll see you again at the next reading. Bye-bye.